And we're back again with the Think Fitness Life podcast, talking about mindset tips. Before we get going, as usual, Eric Menchie with our weekly update.
Source: British Medical Journal. Title: Suggested move to plant-based diet risks worsening brain health nutrient deficiency. Cool.
Okay, right. I like that.
So
good risk.
I always like looking at things with risk potential or articles where it's back and forth. Now, everyone knows or have heard of the vegan diet more so than the vegetarian diet, but they're very similar. This one was talking about a all plant-based diet, saying that with that, people have to be very cautious and careful and should know, like they should be educated that they're missing key nutrients when they only eat plant-based stuff. And they should be supplementing in with other supplements. One of the big ones was choline, which is an essential dietary nutrient. It's produced in the liver, but studies have shown that the liver doesn't produce enough to meet requirements of the human body. So where that becomes important is in brain health, because that is a very important precursor to make the neurotransmitter acetylcholine, which helps the brain function, send signals back and forth, all that stuff. Then if that drops low, it can also have influence on liver function. Shortfalls are leading to irregulars in blood fat metabolism, as well as free radical cellular damage. So important nutrient that if people are going to go vegan, which I'm not saying it's a bad thing, they just need to be aware of the sources of choline and how to supplement that. The interesting part was in this study, an article saying that the UK needs to do a better job of dietary guidance for the national population, which I thought was great because it's not one of these articles that's just pinging this vegan's bad, you should eat this, or, this is debunked. No, it's just saying people need to be more aware of if you're going to go on to become a vegan, that you're going to miss out on key nutrients that the body needs to develop and that you should be getting in the diet somewhere else. Very interesting. So if you're someone who's a vegetarian, vegan, definitely check what nutrients you might be missing or not even getting in your diet at all. And that can be through like a blood test, talking to your doctor about that, or just kind of doing some research on your own and trying to find what you're going to lack in by only taking plants in.
It's interesting that the article only talked about limitations of cognitive performance, because acetylcholine is responsible for many functions other than just like memory or brain games, like motor function as well. So I would almost consider there to be
I would
physical
agree,
problems
which is great because you look at choline. I mean, nutrients just don't have one thing it works on or one pathway. They just chose to look at brain health and risk of worsening that. Like you're saying, there could be so many other issues down the road with other metabolic factors, other processes in the body, other organs that they didn't look at. And I think it's great. I think people need to be much more aware of, taking certain food groups completely out of your diet. Obviously, the ones that are nutrient dense and nutritious, like taking out wheat bread is not going to be like you're going to miss some stuff. Now, some will argue that you're going to miss some essential vitamins from whole grains, and yes, you will, but then you have to find other things that can kind of replace that.
I think a lot of these diets find success because of how radically extreme they are in cutting out certain things. So,
which isn't bad at first.
A lot of people talk about the successes people see on an all vegan diet, or the successes people can see from an all meat diet. And a lot of it comes down to what will be referenced a lot is the fact that it's about what these people aren't eating. It's about what they're eliminating out of their diet, rather than the key being something that they're eating. The key across the board is usually eliminating a wide range of toxins or things that have uh, trace amounts of other products on them that bioaccumulate in our organs. So I think that that's kind of like what I see as a health professional, seeing these extreme cases of only eating plants and only eating animals. Like, there's evidence to support any side to any diet, like nowadays. And what I see is that the diets that extremely eliminate certain foods or cut out certain foods are actually quite
Yeah.
successful.
And short term, and for short term, I'd probably say, yeah, you can be successful for 6 months. But I know you're big into this, and you've said this in past episode is being cyclical with dietary changes. You know, you're not going to do vegan for the rest of your life. Some people will, but you can vary it. You can go for vegan for 4 months, then you can kind of go into maybe a Mediterranean diet for 4 months, and then switch to um, maybe a keto diet for 4 months. And you're still going to see changes in variability. Now, obviously, you're going to find out which one works best for you, but it's not this one diet fits all or one way fits all for people. And I think that's what a lot of people get tripped up on, and they want to be like, oh, well, I'm a vegan, and then this is going to be my answer. It can be, but you have
Right,
to respect that if you're
right.
taking certain things out that our ancestors have eaten for thousands of years, there's going to be some deficiencies in how can we replace those. And I think that is the big thing. Even with clients I have no problem with whatever diet you're on. It's just, how can I help you make sure you're getting the optimal nutrients you need to meet your goals and the optimal nutrients to be healthy. And you could be doing keto, everything's going right, but you're not feeling great, or you're not hitting the numbers in the weight room that you want, or numbers on the scales. Okay, well, how do we get you to be more optimal? And I think it was a very good article.
And the bottom line is, you have to start somewhere and you have to try something, and it might improve one ailment, but it might open you up to other risk factors, and that's just a step that you took, and you've added a tool to your tool belt. When you know you're getting a lot of headaches and you cut out animal protein, boom, you start to clean up the inflammation in your brain, for example. Right, that might be a small example, but then you notice, like, oh, my strength's decreasing, so you have to do things to adapt that. And little by little you start to tweak and tinker with your diet, and you get different feedbacks from, or different information from the feedback that your body's giving you. And yeah, you just get better and better with age, and you get better and better with the choices that you make and with how your body responds.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, especially for this one where it's brain health. You know, we're in an era where everyone's talking about cognitive decline, Alzheimer's, dementia, and how we can prevent that
Parkinson's,
and
yeah.
how we can cure it. It A lot of it starts from what we're putting into our body and how we can create better neurotransmitters or clean up that metabolic pathways in the brain and not create all this garbage and junk byproducts that just kind of linger there and cause these neuronal deficiencies. So I think it's huge, especially for the brain health world, that this can be put in play. I like where the research is going, and I like that they're trying to push for a whole spectrum of, no, it's not just getting this out, but at a whole nation level, these people need to be aware. And maybe you're going to see a certain change in maybe a couple of years with I know what's it, what's the Choose My Plate one, or the nutrition pyramid we used to have here.
Yeah, it's like .gov, choosemyplate.gov or something like that.
Yeah, that might change, and it might be saying, hey, these are what you need essentially to be healthy, and the old one just goes out the window. It's more now a standard of, okay, these are the foods that you should be getting, and these are the foods that are like, no, this isn't going to help.
Well,
to take a
it's too hard for an agency to try to say this is the be all end all in terms of diet across the board for every human being,
correct, correct.
because there's too many blood types, there's too many genetic predispositions, there's too many regions that people are accustomed to. There's too many variations in enzyme levels. There's too many variations in gut bacteria and variations in exposure to antibiotics and hormones. So it's just too complicated to say that here's a diet that everyone should have. It should be said that everyone has to be their own health advocate in terms of
Correct.
food and eating, and we need to be educated about this in our school system. I mean, it comes back to how nobody teaches you how to like handle your credit or finance a loan or pay your taxes in school, when really that's like what's most important. They teach us like econ 101 and macroeconomics and microeconomics, but none of those have helped me to this day. So it's kind of the same things, like along the lines of like, why are we robbing people of the power of taking control of this situation? Why are we trying to say that, no, don't worry about food, you just eat this way, and any health problems that come up, we got you covered? Like, no, it should be much more individual based and be educated on an angle of like, listen, no one's going to know your body better than you. So do your best to try to be aware and learn and use other resources and other experts when you need help. But for the most part, you have to learn about your body and what foods work for it and don't work for it. But that being said, there are things in the brain health and physical health realm that come down to perspective and learned knowledge as well, and we're gonna get into those here in a second. And the title for today is mindset tips and perspective tips, and it's this is the psychology of our brain, and this is the highest form of thinking. We are the creatures that can get to that highest form where we can now adjust the way that we think, and we can tinker and tweak with how our thoughts are set up, and we can direct things accordingly. Like in the way that the river guides the water also shapes the riverbed. So we're going to talk about those today. And to open up, I have a quote I'd like to start with for today's episode that goes, "It is wisdom which is seeking for wisdom." I think that's pretty self-explanatory, but it's pretty basic, pretty Confucius-esque, and it's just the idea of when you're out, you're wise already when you're seeking wisdom.
And it's a perpetual cycle. Yes, you gain
Exactly.
wisdom, but you're still setting more. And I think that's a great place to start today, because so many people with mindset or this ambition and goals, they reach a point where, okay, I've taken this class or I have this wisdom. What's next? There's always should be a next step, a next goal, a next mission, a next, whatever it is in your life. There should be something next, a hobby, habit, I don't know, a book.
And I think you make a good point about it being something next. What's difficult is that we don't always have a checkpoint or a barometer for where our next is in terms of our mindset.
Right.
Whereas for a lift or with nutrition, we know what our meal prep looked last week. We know maybe we're just getting into portions, right? We know what portion was too much. We know what portion was too little. We still haven't figured out what portion is right, but we have a place to start from. Whereas mindset, it's hard to always know where you are or what you need to be reminded of or where your next step is for advancement, because it's one of those things that you don't see. It's not as tangible or as apparent when you've gained wisdom or lacked wisdom.
That's the hardest part right there. And that's why this episode can be challenging for a lot of people because of what you just said. It's not tangible. You can't grasp it. You can't see it. You can't really see it until you get to the end. And the hard part is you don't see the progress. You can see it sometimes depending on what it is, but until you get to the end, the progress is very hard to see. Other people can see the progress. Other people can notice small changes. You might be able to notice it. The end is the tough. And then you get to the end, you have that wisdom. Now what do you do with it? Most people, they stop. Or that's like, oh, this is my end all be all. That's it. And they don't have something to look forward to. And I think that's where one of my first ones, and I love the quote because it kind of fell in, is what's your next step that you're going to take? What is your next thing that you want to accomplish in your life? And have that on a list. And if you're not accomplishing that in a week, 30 days, 2 months, you have to sit down and reassess what you're doing towards what you want to be accomplished. And I know people out there, some people say, oh, I don't really have goals. I think every person wants to accomplish something in their life. And if you don't, I don't know what to say, because then you're kind of on this earth just going through motions. I think as humans, we're built to do tasks, accomplish them, and then move on to the next one. And we've come to this day and age where we're almost suppressing that as a society. They're saying, okay, you've accomplished that, good job. Do you really need to do more? And then you're seeing that the people who are actually doing more are the more successful people.
Yeah, that's an interesting topic for discussion. And I think that would require a whole nother episode. But I think we can agree that for Think Fitness Life, for you and me, for the people who we want to talk to, are for people who realize the cycle of life in terms of starting at youth and expanding through time into old age through our experiences, still enjoying life along the way and laughing and singing and dancing, but then getting to a point where you get to pass on your knowledge, your experiences to your children, your grandchildren, the youth that will be the next in line for inheriting, your property or the earth, right? So I think in that, with that in mind, expansion, we have a lot of tips that help people get over the hurdles, help people strengthen their perspective, improve their bodily functions, and allow them to attain. I shouldn't even say attain. Allow them to excel. Expand, same thing, and to continue to learn. I think that's kind of the end goal, is if you can always learn from something or experience something for what it is, then it's not time wasted. So a lot of these tips are going to be a little perspective tweak so that you can get better in terms of your perspective, in terms of the biochemical response that your brain has in the rest of your body based upon your perspective. And I think it's important to note, since they aren't tangible, they're they're most advantageous when used kind of one at a time, because it's something that you have to put a subtle attention to and respect when there's a moment for you to have a realization or a growth moment or a learning moment. And it's not like what we said before, it's not like you make this little switch and boom, all of a sudden everything's perfect. It's no, you got to kind of solidify that perspective change over and over again until it becomes more second nature. And another quote that probably goes along with today is amateurs practice until they can get it right, and professionals practice until they can't get it wrong. So it's not that you get upset at yourself when you get something wrong, or you revert back to an old mindset way or an old perspective pattern. You just respect it for what it is, and you redirect, and you keep redirecting until it becomes easier and easier for you to stay on the new proper course that you're on, or it gets fewer and fewer that you make those little hiccups where you need to adjust yourself. So I think that's important to keep in mind. And before we run out of time on part one already, I think you should open us up with your first mindset tip.
My first one is learn how to say no. And this, the number one for me was a little tough. And as we go down the list, I think you'll see why. But starting with that harsh activity of just saying, hey, no, this can be applied to many facets in life, many things. But once you get into that pattern of rejecting something that you actually want or like or enjoy doing, you set this tone in your brain that's saying, okay, maybe I don't need that today. I don't need that the next day. And it becomes easier over time to do it. It's just like the first time you've bench pressed or squatted. The first weight you used, it should be tough. You should feel like, hey, I got to 10 reps, or I really don't feel like I could do more. But then the next time you kind of do that same weight, your body adapts and you can do more reps. So you're adding that strength on top of that. So it's like, how are you going to deal with that weight on the bar? You just keep dealing with it. And I think that's with a lot of people I've seen and work with, is saying no is the hardest thing, especially when it comes to food choices or decision making. Because when people are saying yes to certain things, they're not looking at big picture. They're looking at short term, next 24 hours, next 30 minutes picture, which I totally get. And we've all been there and have done that. But to change your mindset, you need to start looking at the long game. The whole picture is, how is this going to pertain to my goals? How is this going to pertain to my success in life? How is this going to pertain to how I'm going to find a job, get a job, continue to be who I want to be? And then once you start asking those questions, it should be easier to say no if it's something that will kind of derail you or stop you from being successful.
I think there's a good quote that goes hand in hand with this. Your first tip is when you say no to somebody else, you're saying yes to yourself. That was like my first knee-jerk reaction. But then I got kind of what you're saying about saying no to things and just kind of having the discipline. But I think they both still apply. That you still have to look out for kind of what's going to be in your best interest, and knowing when to say no to a disciplined thing, but also knowing when to say no so that you can prioritize yourself. So I kind of see it from two angles, and I like that one because it's.
Well, that's where it's going to be. It's not just a one, hey, we're going to say no on multiple things. It's a two angle, it could be a multiple angle approach to basically your new mindset. You're building this new way of thinking, this new patterning of thinking that if you go into this, I can do it. Now, this doesn't mean
And it's so hard for people to
I agree,
say
100%
no.
agree.
And it's funny because it's not like people are afraid of rejection. Well, some
Yeah.
people are afraid of rejection, but a lot of times it's because people are afraid of rejecting. People are afraid of hurting someone's feelings, or you're afraid of the reaction you're going to get because you told somebody no. And you just can't let fear overcome you from what you know, for what you know is right and how you should handle yourself. So
Yeah,
that's a good one.
it doesn't have to be practiced on everything throughout the day. Some people might need to start by just saying, "Hey, I'm not going to watch that next Netflix episode that's 30 minutes. I'm just going to say no. I'm going to go to bed so I get my 8 hours of sleep. I can wake up in the morning and I can move on to the next thing." It might just be something simple as that. Or you could program it in saying,
Yeah.
I had breakfast. I know there's snacks at the office that I usually like to grab, or, go out with friends certain days and go to certain places and get unhealthy food choices. Learn to start saying no there. I'm going to pick nutrition. This week is going to be no on all nutrition that's not going to lead to goals. And for everyone, that is going to be saying no to refined carbohydrates, anything in packaging, um, baked goods, sugars, sugary drinks, a lot of breads. I mean, that's the base that most people should just say no to. Yeah, you're going out. Oh, they're going out for subs. Let me get a salad with some protein or some nuts on it. Done. Saying no to the other stuff. That's the base stuff. I think a lot of people tip wise and tweak can start doing. Especially, I put my clients on a dietary plan. Say, okay, first week you're saying no to all non-complex carbohydrates, and then we can work from there. And that can be applied to everything else down the line.
You know what's so hard is for people to say, okay, so we'll say that it is really hard for people to say no to a drink. But then for people to say no to a drink when they're with their friends or their coworkers or a client. Like I can't I can't tell you how many times I got frustrated when someone told me that they had a drink. Like, sorry, Matt, I told you I wasn't gonna have a drink last night, or I told you I wasn't gonna have a drink today before I came in, but I was with my client and he insisted. I'm like, you don't know how to say no. You know what I mean? And it's just so simple, and it's so hard for people to get it through their head that they're not going to ruin the other person's time. The other person isn't going to say, well, you know what? I don't want to work with you anymore. Or you know what? I don't even like you as a person anymore. Like they might be like, oh, you know what? I'm glad that you said that because I didn't really want to drink either. I was just going to have one because you were going to have one. So I think there's a lot of power in being able to say no and
And
stick to your
a lot
guns.
of times when, yeah, the peer groups are very tough, and you're going to say no. Once people stop me, you might get some harassment. I mean, or some a little pushback, but that's kind of normal. Once you get into those situations, after a while, people forget because most people are more centered to what they want to be doing and what they're going to be doing. People going to go home at the end of the night. They're not really going to care or even think about that you said no to having a drink. They're going to think, okay, I'm going to go home. All right, what's for dinner if I haven't eaten? Do I have to take the trash out? What are the kids doing? What's the family doing? What do I need to do for tomorrow? So a lot of people they're way past you saying no, and I think as humans we tend to hold on to social interactions, and we value them more than I think other people actually take notice and really care. And once you start breaking down that and be like, yeah, so, I mean, someone saw me do something stupid, or kind of like tripped on the pavement and whatever. Maybe after a while, people don't care. They're gonna see it for a second and then go away. So same thing with no. People, yeah, they're not gonna like it. They're gonna be like, really? After a while, there's still you're gonna be your friend. They're not gonna like walk away from you and shun you, and they'll forget all about it. So I think once you start practicing that, you'll get into that groove, and then it's just like you're good at saying no to a lot of
Did you
things.
ever have issues with like peer pressure or just like
Oh,
that
all the time.
social
I
side
still
of
get it to
things?
this day. People be like, "Oh, do you want to come out?" Or "Oh, you want to go for drinks?" And I mean, I'll go out, but I tell people I'm not drinking. I've been out to bars and we'll just order water, and people are like, "Oh, you're really not going to drink?" I don't you feel weird? I'm like, "No, not really. I don't. I'm going to go home. I'm more hungry. I have food at home. I'm going to eat. I just really don't feel like having a drink." Same thing with eating can be a little different or difficult because if you're going to certain places and it's just like there's no good food selection, and if you're starving, but then I just like, hey, I'm going to use this as a fasting period. Perfect. Um, I get a lot of pushback on stuff like that, but same thing. I've conditioned myself to say no and just be like, I could say no 300 times, and eventually the person's going to get sick of asking me and do something else. What about you? I'm sure.
Uh, I mean, I stemmed from really bad social anxiety and definitely wanted to like fit in and do what everyone else was doing because that was the norm and that's how you fit in. And then just kind of realizing everything made me miserable, or I had bad hiccups, or was bloated, or couldn't have fun anyway. I realized that like people would just want to have fun, and alcohol is
Mm.
more of just like a social lubricant. And for most people, that was the case. So that's why most people were drinking. But I found that I was still a really fun person to be around, and actually had more energy when I didn't drink. And I went through kind of some stricter periods in college of no drinking, no smoking weed at all. Kind of from like my own, kind of actually like a little experiment. Basically, at that time, I was still kind of figuring myself out, and it was like a little bit of like, all right, I need a baseline. I need to establish like who am I. So I just stopped doing everything. I stopped adding everything to my body for effects. So yeah, I became really strict, and I used to actually just put bubbly water in ice, or straight water. It was water with ice and like a little lemon, or just a straw and a lemon or a lime, and that was enough for me to like not even have to deal with any questions.
Simple.
I like looked like I was part of the crowd. No one like asked me like what was I drinking, or if I was drinking. And yeah, that one kind of that easily that
Yeah.
got around that trick
And
really,
I think,
that around
oh yeah, but I think
you
everyone
know what
has
I'm
to
trying to
go
say.
through. Everyone goes through that. They try to fit in with certain social groups or peer groups that you find like, okay, what do I have to do for them to, or for me to fit in? And I think everyone has to experience that because if you, I experienced it. Now I'm just good at saying no. Um, and I think that's my first tip
Yeah.
is practice it, start making it part of your daily routine of saying no and see where it gets you, and you'll see that mindset grow.
And you know what? Respect when any of your friends tell you no, because just understand that it's difficult. It's not easy telling people no, but it's even more difficult than when who you thought were your close friends. Because I mean, I lost a lot of friends over the years, and it's unfortunate when you learn who your real friends are and who your real friends aren't. And don't be that friend that, or don't be that person that isn't really a true friend to somebody. um, don't judge somebody because they're trying to make changes, and be supportive and help out how you can, or ask them about it. And just know that it was hardest for them to even open their mouth and say what was really on their mind, or what was really going on. So you just don't know the whole picture, and be accommodating as much as possible to your other peers and family members as well. So I guess it's my turn now. Do I get to launch one yet? Because
Fire
the
away.
episode's almost over. We might have to have a part three of this
I
one.
told you.
I know. So my first one is um, meditate in the morning, and this is probably along the lines of lifestyle, but I'm throwing it into mindset tips because of kind of the science behind it. So telomeres are the little microfilly fibers on the end of our neurotransmitter, or on the end of our cells, and are how our cells communicate with each other. Telomere length has been directly correlated with health and specific longevity. So then they talk about the susceptibility for telomeres to grow. Telomeres, one way they grow is through meditation. They're most susceptible to this growth in the morning. So my advice to people for a little mindset tip to get them in control with their brain and in control with their mind and their thoughts is they'll have a better handle on your mind, big mind and little mind, if you meditate first thing in the morning and set the stage for the day. Just anywhere from 1 to 5 minutes for a beginning. And then on a regular basis, anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes every morning. You're going to go a long way towards the overall awareness you gain to your body and thus perform better as a creature.
I think that goes, and yes, lifestyle, but I think that goes great into creating this mindset, because the first one was a very, very hard way and strict way of going about training your mindset. And now you come with a different, I should say, a different approach of,
Different approach. Yep.
of clearing your mind, letting your mind talk to itself without actually going through the daily stresses of so much input and output, and having the ability to train the mind, literally train the brain to to, to house more longevity.
And you bring up a good point about it being like without distraction, because it's the same way that they tell you to train a dog. They say first things first, get them to pay attention to you and the command in the house. There's no distractions. Then you work on a real life scenario. So you're literally waking up first thing in the morning, no distractions, no tasks, just relax, just be you and your mind. That's it. It's as simple as that. That little tip. Call me in 2 weeks.
I guarantee you'll feel different.
I guarantee I would put
Yeah.
$1,000 on that per person.
If it doesn't work, I'll give you a free training session. But
There you
with
go.
that, it's also great.
Excel Fitness in Holiday, Utah, or Equinox Franklin Street in Boston, Massachusetts.
It is
Come find us.
it is hard to build a mindset, and it takes a lot of brain effort. And the brain, through research, we know it fatigues. It builds up fatigue in the brain. That's why sleep is so important, rest is so important, and relaxation is so important, because it restores our brain function. It clears our brain of these toxic buildups that we do throughout the day, or the fatigue. And where you're coming from on this one is saying, okay, I come from a very harsh one. Like, yeah, you're going to train your brain. This is going in, doing the hour workout, grinding through. You come with a recovery aspect of the brain, recovery aspect of the mindset. So within this meditation, you are going to change your brain waves. We're going to start getting into lower frequencies of brain waves. You're going to restore the brain. You're going to help flush new fluids into the brain, new neurons, new neurotransmitters, more flow and pathways. Then you go and learn. You're gonna be able to retain a lot of information, a lot of memory, and you're gonna feel better, overall better. And then you start combining these two. Okay, yeah, I want to say no, and I'm going to meditate. It's going to be easier for brain to pick up and learn that new behavior, and it's going to stick. So I'm kind of actually really glad that you went into meditation, because we could easily go through, all right, you got to do this, you got to say no, you have to do this other tweak or tip that's going to be, trying to train the brain, which I'm all for. But if you don't respect it on the other side, it's like, how much are you going to try to burn this thing out and not restore it? So, tip number 2, meditate in the morning, best
I think
time.
I think the other thing that's important about that tip is the context that we're in today. Like, if we fast forwarded 500 years or we rewind 1,000 years, that might not be the same tip. But where we're at today, it seems like that would be a really good tip for people to get to slow down, be themselves, get to observe their own thoughts without any additional stimulus, and get to just be themselves. Get a moment in the day for yourself, first thing in the morning, before you have that coffee, before all the kids are awake, before the dogs got to go out, and just breathe. Just acknowledge that you're alive and be in tune with yourself. And if you need a place to start, you can chant the mantra, love, what is it? We are just, I forget what the three are. It's like love, compassion, and sympathy. Say love, compassion, and sympathy. Bring that into your morning practice with yourself. Have that for yourself and have that for the world around you. And I guarantee you'll have a better day and better weeks. Hands down. But yeah, like I said, it's a good place for where we're at. I mean, I don't want to go into too much detail because we're going to not even get to a third tip, but we're just too fast. We're just too fast paced moving society. People need to slow down, take a deep breath, close their eyes, enjoy life, smell the roses for just a couple minutes in the morning, and then it'll make sense when I give my tip too. But go ahead, lead into your tip.
So my second one is having a thing to focus on. So I know at the beginning we talked about your next goal, your next mission, your next thing you want to accomplish, but have a focused mindset. So what I mean by that is focus on one task at a time, do that
Okay.
task, then move on to the next one. And in today's society, we have so much stimulus coming in. We have cell phones, laptops, we have notifications picking up, we have other people talking. All can be good things. But when you're trying to work to a certain goal, a lot of those things coming in all at once can deter or kind of slow people down. Or knowing that you have three things you want to accomplish, pick one, do that one first, and then move on to the next one. So if you have three books you want to read, instead of trying to read all three at once, pick one up, complete that one, then move on to the next one, and then the next one. And how I tell a lot of people to decide is what is task number one should be what you most want to do, you most want to focus on. So in our world, if that's weight loss, we focus on weight loss first. Your other goals could be strength and flexibility, but number one is weight loss. So we're going to put most of that focus and time and effort into that weight loss. So you understand that this is the primary goal. We're going to achieve this task. And once we get there, we can start throwing in some other things too, but that's our primary one. Then we move on to another one. I think a lot of people nowadays are too many task oriented. They're trying to just go left and right and do too many things at once rather than just doing, okay, keep a simple one, do that one, move to the next task.
Yeah, we feel this like innate desire to have to catch two birds with one stone, and
All the time.
we feel like we have to be so productive, and we don't realize that it's difficult to be so concentrated on two separate tasks that we end up not catching either bird.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's a really good lesson and mindset tip.
You know,
And it stems back to my favorite mindset mindset influencer. When we talked about this a few episodes ago, it was Shunryu Suzuki, and it was out of Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. And he has a chapter that came to mind when you said that mindset tip. It leads off saying, when you do something, you should burn yourself completely, like a good bonfire. leave no trace of yourself. And yeah, so that was a really good mindset tip. I like that one.
And I
So
think
say it again.
a lot of them get just a lot of people get tripped up on too many things. So staying focused on one thing at a time is big. So I was talking to a client last week. We had a session.
But what did you say in the beginning? What you said, like, be task driven, like one task at a time or something.
Yes. Oh, so that's it. Focus on one task at a time. Then
Just
once
focus
you
on one
complete
task
it,
at a time.
move to the next one. And because I was talking to a client about our new strategy, nutrition plan, workout plan, and I was giving them all good information, but you could see it was overloading their system, and they were thinking, how can I do all of this stuff to get to health? But they wanted to do all of it, but it's just, for most people, it's very overwhelming to make so many changes at once. And I said, we're going to pick one. We're going to pick a simple task. We're going to have you do it every day. We're going to make sure you're reminded every day, which is another one of my tips we'll get to probably on part 2. And once you see that every day, you get a feel for it. It might be a week or 2. You're not going to remember. You're not going to have to be reminded anymore. You're going to get up and just do it completely on your own. Then I can move to the next task. All right, now we can say, you have to add this in or take certain things out. That's what it becomes for people.
Like you free up some of your mental energy, right, for
because
you've solidified something, rather than having to keep it in the forefront of your mind all the time.
Because it's great how the brain works. That you're going to learn something. When you learn, the brain lights up. All certain areas of the cortex lights up, and you learn that new task. But once your body learns that task, those same areas don't get excited to that first time you learned it, which means that you just learned a new behavior. And for your brain, it doesn't become as much of a surge of neurotransmitters to try to learn it again. It's already there. So now you store that, and it becomes almost like autopilot. Your brain goes, okay, boom, I'll send the signal there. It knows what to do. Send it back. We're going to get this done. And then the next task you do should be new, lights up your brain again. So now these are where behaviors and patterns get learned and stored, which is amazing. But I think that's why a lot of people need to take one task at a time, learn it, repeat it, do it again, and then the brain grows. And then we're keeping brain health going. I think the opposite happens when people don't learn tasks and don't do enough. Then we start to get into cognitive decline and everything that comes with it. So it's one of those things that, if you have a mindset already, still do more, learn more, read more, do more hobbies, pick things up, learn new tasks. Its brain is ever growing.
Norman Doidge wrote The Brain That Changed Itself, and it's all about just the neuroplasticity and the way that, again, the riverbed guides the water, but the water shapes the riverbed. And another quote along these lines that we're talking about that definitely pertains when we're talking about all of these mindset tips to reprogram our brain, and kind of the purpose of why in the beginning you'd have to repeat it so many times to yourself to help kind of guide that thought pattern, and then later it just becoming second nature, is because of this quote that's by Daniel J. Siegel. And he goes, where attention goes, neural firing flows, and neural connection grows. Right? It's just like, oh shit, how'd you just teach me about neuroplasticity in one sentence?
Read that again.
And where attention goes, neural firing flows, and neural connection grows. And he has a great book called Aware. That's Daniel J. Siegel. And he talks about the science and practice of being present.
I mean, if you know nothing about neurology and you read that, you should be able to figure it out. Like, that's, like you said, unbelievable, just teaching neuroplasticity in 1 second. I think
like Now you just have to learn about which neurotransmitters and what chemicals are involved, and then then can have a degree.
So
No,
it's like every
but
person should hear and learn that quote so they know that's how learning goes. That's how it
yeah,
all stems. Simple.
and a lot of it is very specific to the yes brain and helping specifically a child or just anyone become um, more glass half full, more silver lining, more positive, more relentless, more resilient. And it's just about training your brain because you'll learn from um, many other studies out there that we basically have when we boil down our emotions and our experiences, we have four major ones. 25% of them are positive and 75% of them are negative. It's just how we're wired. We have fear, we have joy, we have anger, we have sadness. 3 out of 4 of those aren't that enjoyable to experience in the moment. Maybe some would beg to differ, but we have to know that and then figure out that we have to tip the scale in our favor, and we have to do that much better job at um, being relentlessly positive about ourselves or finding these little mindset tips to reprogram our brain to work for us rather than against us. So I guess that probably leaves it to me for the next tip.
Probably the last one.
And
Fire away.
it fits right in with yours and my first one, and it's just physical movement meditation. So the reason I love both of these is because one of them starts your day off on the same page, and the next one helps you redirect your day and right the ship back to a more peaceful day in your body, in your heart, in your system, in your world, right? Your biology, your cells, 37 trillion of them. So you morning meditate, you calibrate your system to be calm and relaxed and enjoy the day despite going all through the craziness. And then somewhere in the day, maybe lunchtime or 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, it's a physical movement meditation. Going on a walk down the hall, going on a drive, going on a walk in a park or something. And all you're doing is just trying to be aware of your breathing and just slowing down your breathing rate as you walk. And probably better to do it not driving. So I don't recommend that one anymore. better, better just be physical moving, maybe on a bike or even a treadmill or a stair mill is still going to be challenging because you're having that added stimulus of movement in your body, cellular respiration and your cardiorespiratory system. So you're going to have to, it's going to be a challenge to focus on your breathing anyway. But what that does is you have the training wheels on in the morning of no distractions, and then later you take the training wheels off and you try it with distractions, and you just your brain's going to pull away from being on your breath, but then you just gently kind of try to guide it back, and it's just part of the process. It's part of a learning experience, and it's just all about being able to strengthen your mind in its neutral state and how you should be even when you walk up to the bar at a PR, 315, 405, squat, deadlift, bench, whatever. Like your heart rate should be primed and your energy should be ready to go. But even a lot of strength coaches will talk about how energy is wasted by like screaming and shouting and slapping. Like that should be all stored until you hit the bar, right? So you want to be able to stay calm and control your system. And I think that's a great little um, part 2 tip or second mindset tip: physical movement meditation. And your first one's in the morning, and your second one's your midday break.
Keeping the body in mind aware and not just going through life on cruise control. And I think those are huge, especially the second one. Because even I do this sometimes. Is I get in, okay, it's my lower end aerobic day. Oh, let me just put some music on and go. And I know over years of training, and especially with you, you're like, nah, let's get rid of the music, or we won't work out with music today. And on that one, just taking everything away and just being mindful of not even the surroundings around you. Now, maybe if you're going on a hike, you're mindful of where you're stepping and all that stuff. But if say you're on a treadmill in a gym, being mindful of your breathing, your foot hitting the treadmill tread, the way you're stepping, how your body's moving on that belt, that goes a long way. Especially in addition to what you already said. So I mean, that is something I should try more of. As is just be more
And what
mindful
you're
and aware of who
yeah,
we are in the sense of what we're moving around on this earth and moving through space.
and, and your for your, what I mean by your system, like again, the 37 trillion cells with your gut communicating with your brain, and your brain releasing chemicals for the rest of your body and sending signals to different organs or different extremities for movement. Um, all of this does is allows you to have a brain or system that acts more as a machine rather than letting emotionality or feelings run your system. And you learn to um, stay clear headed and less anxious in times where your cortisol levels are spiked, your sensories heightened a little bit, your heart rate increased, and now you may have made an impulsive decision or done something that you wouldn't have done before. So it just allows you to, again, be more reasonable and kind of remove emotionality from the situation, because a lot of the times these little things in life cause a chemical reaction to release cortisol in our body, and we're not even aware of it. So it's learning to be able to control those moments and prevent it from happening will get you more in tune with your body and more in control. So that was my second mindset tip. You did two as well, and we're at about an hour in. So we have I have like five more. I know you have five more. So this might be a part three. Um, do you have anything you want to end with before we say goodbye?
I think, yeah, the contrast of our one and two are our two tips. As most as listening through, you can hear that yours are very much more of a physical, mental, mental mindset training, which I think is great. And mine are more of almost like a not physical, but more like inner self decision making. This is where mental toughness is stemmed from. And I think it's a good flow back and forth of, okay, well, people aren't just going to hear the traditional, you got to do this, this, and this. And it's like confusing. So they can take this one and go, all right, we're going to practice saying no, but we're also going to meditate in the morning. So like combining these things together, I think are going to go a long way for people or listeners to really help them complete the whole aspect of mindset training. Because I think it's not just mental fortitude. I think that's a big part of it, but the physical aspect of getting your mind right with your body, talking through all the other systems is very key to training the complete person of you as you're standing on this earth. So I think that's very well put together for part one of this and how people can start or where they can start.
I think there's so many tools to utilize in terms of fitness, in terms of nutrition, in terms of lifestyle. And then just even looking at mindset, there's a few other layers of tips that can be implemented. And I love that we offered up kind of two different perspectives on implementing those tips, because hopefully everyone who listened to this episode was able to gain something from it so far, because we are definitely going on to part 2 and part 3 of this one. I'm sure. All right, that wraps us up. See you next week.